Shabbat Shalom and good morning. We begin this service with a prayer for peace, seeking the peace of Shabbat to descend upon us and upon our world. Sim Shalom, page 140 in the Shabbat and online edition of the prayer book.
Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Ve'tov beinecha לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. Baruch atah Adonai המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום, בשלום. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך, עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך, עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך.
Page 108 and 109. Three things there are together in my eye that keep the thought of thee forever nigh. I think about thy great and holy name whenever I look up and see the sky. My thoughts are roused to know how I was made, seeing the earth's expanse where I abide. The musings of my mind when I look inside, at all times, O my soul, bless Adonai. The Baruch Hu, our praise of God, our call to prayer and our declaration of readiness to see the blessings in the world. Page 108, if you are able to rise for the Baruch Hu.
Lai, lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 la, lai, lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai, hamevorach, hamevorach. Adonai hamevorach leolam leolam vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due, now and forever. Lai, lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 la, lai, lai, lai. Lai, lai, la, lai, lai, lai,
Turning forward to page 112. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us, by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Our Declaration of Faith, Shema Yisrael, page 114.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, our ancestors sang, "Who is like you, O God?" when they beheld God's presence at the sea. Page 122.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. Shira harasha shebechol geolim leshimcha al sefat hayam yachad kolam Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed.
Sur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael. Uvdei chinumecha Yehuda v'Yisrael. Golenu Adonai Tzavaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Rock of Israel. Rise in support of Israel and redeem Judah and Israel as you promised. Our Redeemer Adonai Tzavaot is your name. Blessed are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We rise, those who are able, as we encounter the presence of holiness in the world. Adonai Savatai Tiftach, dear God, open up our lips. Help us to declare your praise. We offer these words together as we begin our Amidah, page 124.
La 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 la. 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 Adonai, Shabbat tiftach, ufi yagid, tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Adonai, Shabbat tiftach, ufi yagid, tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Emoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה חב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחבי רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומטמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. יקדש שם שמך בעולם, שמדישים אותו משמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאיך וקרא זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. את חדו אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לכל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי יחציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד קהות לך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך להקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated as we take a moment for silent prayer and reflection. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'odcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Yehiyu l'ratzon imrefi. May the words of our mouths, the meditations of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O God, our rock and our redeemer. We turn forward in the prayer book to page 245. Hakhel et ha'am ha'anashim v'hanashim v'hataf v'gercha asher bisharecha. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. Our Torah service, page 248. If you are able to rise, please do so.
Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedoshato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Lehar Kosho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Lehar Kosho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Lehar Kosho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Lehar Kosho.
You may be seated unless you'd like to remain standing to offer the blessing for the Torah portion. This week's Parsha Chukat comes from the book of Numbers. We'll be reading from chapter 21, beginning with verse 6. Numbers chapter 21, verse 6. The Torah blessings can be found on page 250. Please join me if you would wish to do so. Sorry. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach, Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. V'yishlach Adonai ba'am et hanachashim hasrafim v'ynashchu et ha'am v'yamot am rav miYisrael. V'yavo ha'am el Moshe v'yomru chatanu ki dibarnu ba'Adonai. V'avach hitpalel el Adonai v'yaser me'aleinu et hanachash. V'yitpalel Moshe ba'ad ha'am. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe aseh lecha saraf, v'sim oto al nes, v'haya kol hanashuch, v'ra'a oto v'chai. Vaya'as Moshe nachash nechoshet, v'yismehu al hanes, v'haya im nashach hanachash, et ish v'hibit el nachash hanechoshet v'chai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Misha berach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. Hu yivarech et kol hakrim asher alu laTorah hayom. May God who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless all of those who have offered the blessing for Torah with reverence for God and with love for the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam v'et kol mishpachotehem, v'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadehem im kol Yisrael achechem. May the Holy One bless you and your families. May God prosper your deeds together with our people everywhere. V'nomar. Amen. I'll invite you to remain standing or to rise if you are able. Page 252 as we lift and dress the Torah.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. לה 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 לה. La 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 la
The Eternal sent seraph serpents against the people. They bit the people, and many of the Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "We sinned by speaking against the Eternal and against you. Intercede with the Eternal to take away the serpents from us." Moses interceded for the people. Then the Eternal said to Moses, "Make a seraph figure, mounted on a standard. If anyone who is bitten looks at it, he shall recover." Moses made a copper serpent and mounted it on the standard. And when anyone was bitten by a serpent, he would look at the copper serpent and recover. These are the words of Numbers chapter 21, verse 6 through 9. What we have here in this scene from our Parsha is an interesting one. And it's interesting not only because of what takes place in it, but because we see it appear again in the second book of Kings, when Hezekiah, quote, "abolished the shrines and smashed the pillars and cut down the sacred post. He also broke into pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made, for until that time the Israelites had been offering sacrifices to it." End quote. Why would a king destroy an item God had commanded Moses make in order to renew the covenantal ritual worship in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem? What we may have here in the book of Numbers is what is called an etiological myth, a myth which seeks to explain the origin of a religious cult that was subsumed into the Israelite worship. The more we learn about the Israelite culture, the more we come to realize that much of the repeated commandments against idol worship in our Torah are likely responses to Israelite cultural worship taking place at a later time. Our prophets railed against apostate idol-worshiping Israelites perhaps because it was actually happening. Dr. Michael Fishbane suggests, "It may be that this copper serpent entered the Israelite cult as a Canaanite heritage and was later written into a story about Moses in order to justify the practice and to accentuate the healing power of God. That is, of course, until reevaluation of those practices during the temple period caused Hezekiah to realize our ancestors had gone too far. Of course, we will never know for sure, though I think we can certainly say that this story about the copper serpent merits assuming there is more happening in our Torah than we see by just reading the text. The bottom line is that our history is convoluted in a way that we could never have begun to understand when we were 12 years old in Sunday school. Nothing of value and worth is so simple. The beauty of our tradition is that generation after generation over the course of thousands of years have taken it upon themselves to ensure that the Torah continues to speak loudly and meaningfully in every age. That responsibility passes to us as we read the words of our Torah and see in it the holy blessings of ethical teachings and meaningful interpretation. As we strive to practice and experience the ritual tradition in ways which are meaningful, relevant, and which speak to the grand concerns of human existence. We do not erect a copper serpent to deal with illness, but that symbol continues today to speak to the value and the importance of the pursuit of medical health, well-being, and the scientific advancement for the sake of life. Today we understand that more than many of the generations before us. The Torah is a tree of life. It speaks to us meaningfully in every generation, and we are reminded today that its message is a message of life, of health, of commitment to our people, our ancestors, and to God, and to the well-being for all people. Shabbat Shalom. That being the case, we take a moment to pray for healing for those who are ill. As we look to the middle of page 253, I invite you to type into the chat the names of those that you are thinking of this morning as we join you in your prayers that they fully recover. We sing together on page 253.
שברח אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. מי שברך אמותינו, שרה רבקה לאה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with a vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, mi sheberach imoteinu, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Our Haftarah, our prophetic reading for this morning, comes from the book of Judges, chapter 11, beginning with verse 29 through verse 33, as we read about the oath, the mistaken oath, the vow of Jephthah. Please join me in the blessings on page 254. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Then the Spirit of the Eternal came upon Jephthah. He marched through Gilead and Manasseh, passing Mitzpeh of Gilead, and from Mitzpeh of Gilead he crossed over to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made the following vow to the Eternal: if you deliver the Ammonites into my hands, then whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me on my safe return from the Ammonites shall be the Eternal's, and shall be offered by me as a burnt offering. Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites and attacked them, and the Eternal delivered them into his hands. He utterly routed them from Aroer as far as Minith, 20 towns, all the way to Abel Cheramim. So the Ammonites submitted to the Israelites. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer be'osei, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'tifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach, umvarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-shabbat. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted. If you are able to rise, please do so as we return the Torah to the Ark, page 256.
Et chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcheha me'oshar deracheha narcheinoam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu
Aleinu l'shabeach, page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גאולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגודל הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated as we turn now our thoughts and our prayers to the blessing of memory, page 292. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, yet if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence, and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as, in their higher moments, they themselves wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 294. As I mentioned the names of those we remember this week, I invite you to share the names you are remembering in our chat. We mourn the recent death of Libby Ann Green, Fred Green, and John Papa. This anniversary week of their passing, we observe yahrzeit for Lillian Aronson, Golda Baker, Herman Beck, Litzy Belford, Ida Levy Bendelin, Richard Bischoff, Howard Burnham, Rebecca Clayton, Jeffrey Dember, Walter Feinberg, Samuel Robert Fleischer, Milton Max Friedman, Aaron Goodman, Amelia Goodman, Ira Grossell, Joseph Hamburger, Rosalind Lessam Hyman, Louis Horwitz, Bernice Isaacs, Jess A. Joseph, Martha Kahn, Margarita Keim, Lily Schwartz Klein, Ernst Kohlberg, Henry Lavis, Max Levine, Abe Levy, Moisha Lieb Marcus, Stephen Rainey, Evelyn Rosen, Stephen Ryback, Maria Vasquez Saenz, Guadalupe Ochoa Salas, Minna Schaefer, Henrietta Schroeder, Dan Schwarzkopf, Bernard Spitz, Charles Stein, Alberto Trefiso. We think of them, we think of those who you are thinking of. We offer prayers for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. As together we stand as one communal family. Page 294. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lamei al-maya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal Shemei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who makes harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world. Amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru
Before we conclude, I'd like to express gratitude to Carlos Gomez, Temple Mount Sinai's music director, to Elvira Spector, who you could hear on piano, to Andrew Cabrera, who's helping us to stream this service. Also, our thanks to our Shabbat streaming sponsors, Robert and Eddie Treviso in memory of Alberto Treviso, Boris Keim and Fifi Heller Keim in memory of Margarita Keim, Norma Levinson in memory of Henrietta Schroeder, Tibor Schechner in memory of Lily Schwartz Klein, Gloria Lavis in memory of Henry Lavis. Looking ahead, please make some notes in your calendar, one for June 27th, Sunday at 2 o'clock, when we will welcome director Isaac Artenstein, who will discuss his documentary film, Challah Rising in the Desert, The Jews of New Mexico. Look at your email. You should have received, I believe it was Thursday, where you will find a way to sign up to be able to watch that film before we welcome him on June 27th at 2 o'clock via Zoom. Also, please make your reservations by June 29th for Temple's annual Independence Day Shabbat dinner, which will follow our July 2nd Shabbat service. The Shabbat service that evening, July 2nd, will include installation of our Board of Trustees, a farewell to Carlos, and of course, our July birthdays and anniversaries. Also, we invite you to join us October 22nd through 24th in the Sacramento Mountains, just outside of Cloudcroft, to reconnect with one another in person and unplug on a weekend mountain retreat. Everyone is invited for a fun-filled weekend with our Misty and Mini Misty families. Space is limited, so please register early. Early bird pricing runs until July 22nd. More details are to be found in your email, and with gratitude to the Jewish Community Foundation for their help in making this retreat a possibility. Please do be sure to check your email for all that's happening here at Temple Mount Sinai as we celebrate Shabbat, holidays, and just celebrate being together in community. We conclude on page 336, the words of Psalm 92, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, a psalm, a song for Shabbat.
Mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir leyom hashabat. 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 Mizmor, shir, shir leyom hashabat. Mizmor, shir, shir leyom hashabat. Mizmor, 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 shir, shir leyom hashabat. Mizmor, shir, shir leyom hashabat.
Ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai me'od amku machshavotecha. In Psalm 92, the Levites sang thousands of years ago, how great are your works, Adonai, how very profound your designs. May we continue to sing those words this Shabbat, every day of our lives. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Elvira.